Hello. Hello. So today I'm in bed because we're going to be talking about dreams and what they could be telling you from a spiritual, psychological, pattern, ancestral based, different facets of meaning when it comes to processing dreams and what dreams are trying to show you about the different patterns that you're working through in your day to day life, but also the different patterns that are going to be worked through throughout your lifetime. So, for me, I've had pretty vivid and crazy dreams ever since I was a child. And I think for a lot of people who have struggled with dreams, nightmares, different sleep problems, it's pretty difficult to understand a lot of the time what they're trying to say to us, like really what the message is, because the subconscious oftentimes speaks very cryptically in symbolism and different types of imagery that aren't very overt. It's like a covert way of communicating with your conscious mind. And a lot of the time you wake up and you don't remember most of the dreams, so there can be a lot of holes in the plot that you're trying to remember, and you're just not really sure overall what the meaning of the dream was and what it's trying to communicate to you about not only your reality but about your like spirit, like your soul, what the situation is. So, first of all, know that sometimes your subconscious is working through things that aren't supposed to make sense to you, but in matters of reoccurring dreams, ones where there is a significant reoccurring character, plot, uh, pattern of events, different reoccurring, or dreams that feel very vivid and significant and almost like you wake up and it's like a scarring dream, like you're very confused and kind of taken back by the dream and what it means. These are the types of dreams that you might want to know and should probably be aware of their actual meaning beyond what they are just visually communicating to you through the images, characters, people, interactions. So, I'm going to use one example of a dream that I had, or I should say nightmare, that I had and it's not super scary, so don't worry. I wouldn't use a very like scary dream to put bad thoughts into your head, but also know that these are all a lot of the dreams that we have are meant to teach us something. So even if it feels like, obviously, when I woke up from this dream, I was like, what the hell? This is such a weird. I hated that. Like, what was that? That was really awful. When I journaled about it and I took time, I actually wrote some poems about it. I got time to work through it and sit with it and really think to myself more deeply about what it meant. I actually learned quite a bit from it. So, a lot of times when you have a bad dream, a nightmare, there can be a lot learned. So, don't be super alarmed too. It doesn't always mean that something bad is going to happen to you. Usually, it is your brain trying to protect you from something that it perceives as a threat in the real, you know, waking moments of your day. And it's trying to show you something so that you can be aware of it. And even if you don't immediately like fix it, that you can at least bear witness to what it's trying to show you, because that thing could be impacting your relationships with others, your relationships with self, the way you perceive the world, and the way you perceive everything. So, in this dream that I had, it was Basically, I was in the, it was kind of like Peaky Blinders, kind of like the mafia. I'm Irish, so perceivably people who could be like somehow like not that they were my ancestors, but basically it was kind of a setting, a time period, and the types of people that maybe existed in an ancestor's life for me, but not that I've experienced in my life. This is another interesting thing and why I want to talk about ancestral patterns in this dream space because a lot of times, before I get into the dream, I also want to mention this. You are the culmination of everyone who has come before you, and this is an obvious fact. But you have to consider the fact that everyone before you survived to have you standing, breathing, living, watching this video, and all of their survival instincts, all of their fears, all of their um, everything that they experienced is almost kind of coded in your DNA because your DNA is linked, interlinked, connected to your ancestry. And the primal fears that we have are encoded genetically to help us survive because, like I said, the reason why we're here is because our ancestors survived. And there are a whole lot of things that they experience that we kind of might carry around that we're not super aware of. And that's why they will come out in the dream space because we don't have their life experiences to be constantly referencing, especially if they're distant ancestors, and um, we don't have access to their memory. I think a lot of people who are probably more tapped in than I am might be able to tap into that type of, but like even as someone, I'm deeply spiritual. I do not believe that I have direct access to my ancestors' memories, but I have my senses, all of our senses are adapted from our ancestors' senses that are shaped by their survival instincts, those primal fears, and things of that nature. So, to keep that in mind when we're talking about this dream. Basically, I was in this house that could be from anywhere in the late 1800s to late 1920s. I'm not really sure. I don't remember all of the minute details. I just remember that it did look not super like necessarily Victorian or Art Deco. It was like somewhere in between that time frame. And the people looked Irish. So take that however you will. Underneath, so I remember, and like most dreams, as you can see, I'm having trouble recalling everything because you're not meant to remember every detail of every dream you have. So do not like um pick on yourself because you can't remember every single part of a dream that you had. Like that's not the point of the dream. Um it's not to remember every single detail. Underneath the floor, so there was like a trap door. Underneath the trap door there was, well, when somebody opened it, it looked to be just like a very big cellar. So in this dream, we all went down under the floor into this deep cellar to find out that it was actually kind of like it was like a labyrinth of like stone walls, and it was like this maze in a under the ground like cellar. In this cellar, there was a really large um what I perceived to be some type of entity that was shaped kind of like a slug, like a large slug. Sounds very strange, I know. But a almost not very fast moving, but it was breathing. This is gonna sound crazy again. It was breathing like fire slash like magma. And this is a symbolic representation. So whether or not you believe in entities or spirits or metaphysical forms of um, like an emotional representation of something, whether or not you believe in that, we're just going to identify this more from a symbolic perspective. So I did a little research, obviously, on what that meant. Things that breathe fire, and it also had like eyes that were glowing as well. And when it was breathing fire towards me, and I covered my eyes like this, the fire didn't burn me, and I actually like survived. But I had woken up by that point because so maybe that means that I died in the dream. I don't know. That's besides the point. This fire breathing slug sounds crazy. Is representative of anger. Because things that breathe fire are generally representative of anger. And when you dig deeper into symbolism for glowing eyes, that's just kind of like a primal fear because when we were sitting around campfires and somebody was keeping watch at night, they would look for eyes in the woods um, that reflected the fire. So they looked like glowing eyes, but it was really just like wolves' eyes reflecting the fire because they were looking towards the fire, if that makes sense. So that's why glowing eyes is associated with like dark spirits or demons. It's not because um it's just a manifestation of a fear. It's not a real like well, technically it is a real fear, but the fear is why it's manifesting in that form. It's not actually because that thing is going to show up in your room. That's not what like do you know what I'm saying? Okay. So, um after looking up the uh symbolism of what it meant and the different types of entities that it could be representing, I didn't really land on one, so I took it as more of a manifestation of emotions and specifically, obviously, anger. So, what could that be telling me about my current experience? Like, anger, what could be angering me in my world? What anger could be bottled up? Because it was under a house that wasn't mine. So you can interpret that as um someone else's anger, or you can interpret it as anger caused from an external experience that you're now holding inside of you and that is wanting to be expressed or wanting to be validated and noticed. Because your brain obviously constantly wants to kind of it will show you things and it will bring you back to circumstances where it wants you to be aware of the emotion that you were feeling because it just wants to kind of be noticed, if that makes sense. Something that I realized was a lot of the parts of me that were causing like me to get triggered or like have memory flashbacks were times when I was angry about something, but I wasn't allowing myself to be angry. So the anger, instead of expressing itself, I wasn't looking at it right because in the dream I was covering my eyes to it. Um, and so the inability to recognize the anger and to look at it is what the dream was trying to show me. This is obviously one symbolic representation of one instance of one emotion that I happen to be feeling, but I think it can be your dreams can obviously take so many different forms, so many different shapes. They can be showing you so many different things. This is just one like specific example of mine. But hopefully it's a good representation of a clear and very obvious. A lot of times it's not going to be obvious like this. So you don't always need to be decoding everything as well. But if something is constantly repeating for you or it feels very significant and you're curious, Um, Definitely also, I have a book of like signs and symbols, so I also happen to be a little bit more well versed in the world of symbolism, but you can just look it up on the internet. You don't have to have like some crazy encyclopedia of symbols. Um, but a lot of the reasons why, like I said, your brain is trying to show you these things is because it's trying to evolve past a certain emotion. Anger is showing you when lines have been crossed, when you need to be um, assertive, and when you need to be more. It's not always when you need to be more vigilant, it's just when you need to, um, be holding your boundaries and standards, and when you need to be more self possessed, when you need to be having more agency and, self efficacy, because when you are living your day-to-day life and you have this backlog of anger as like a very strong, powerful emotion that's kind of subconsciously controlling you, your anger is going to come out in little ways that could seem passive aggressive to other people. And you don't need to be a perfect person and always have like the best reactions to every experience ever, but if you're always having this like anger is a very emotionally expensive, or no, energetically expensive emotion, is what I was trying to say. Because anger takes action to obviously transmute. Um, so a lot of times it's trying to point you towards actions, and it's trying to point you towards mental boundaries and barriers and things that you can put up for yourself to prevent you from experiencing similar angering circumstances in the future. And it being underneath a house, and also something that I didn't mention in the dream was that um, in the dream, I was with a group of other people and we all scattered. So I was, I guess, like abandoned during the attack from the entity, the emotion. Let's just call it the emotion because honestly, that's what it is. It's anger. When I was attacked by anger, rage. So feeling abandoned is obviously also an angering thing, right? Feeling isolated. So that could be another thing. Like in the dreams, you'll get different clues of what is causing that, and even if it doesn't overtly tell you, you can put the pieces together. I have faith in you. You don't need to be the most emotionally intelligent person ever to be able to decode what your dreams are trying to tell you, but it's honestly a lot more. You feel a deeper level of intimacy, and you have a deeper relationship with self when you're able to interpret your dreams and understand their meanings. Not a lot of people are willing to take the time and energy to spend it on their own dreams. They would rather watch TV and, be involved in a world of fantasy. But if you can muster up the courage to face and confront your subconscious beliefs, emotions, fears, things that are controlling your life in the background, you'll be able to have a tighter, firmer grip on reality. Not to say that you can control everything that happens in reality. Um, you are an operant, you are the operating being in your reality, but you can't always be in control of every single thing. It's not about control, it is about awareness. And awareness is the most empowering and clarifying thing to exist, because once you are aware, once you make the unconscious conscious, you know, it can no longer rule your life, and you will no longer call it fate, because as Carl Jung says, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will rule your life and you will call it fate. And that is why dreams are huge, 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 indicators. They're showing you the red flags. They are flagging, hey, hey, pay attention to this, look at this. You know, you weren't noticing this during the day. So now we're gonna run this movie tonight, and this is gonna be, are you ready for this movie? So the less you are willing to be aware of during the day, the more your brain is going to make you aware of when you are trying to sleep. And this is why you might feel frustrated, and think, why can't I just have good dreams? Why are my dreams always this crazy theatrical business? What's like, why me? Why is this happening? I just want to have good dreams. I just want to sleep. I don't want to have dreams at all. Um, it is because you are not placing enough awareness on your emotional state, your spiritual state, your well-being during the day. And yes, part of well-being is noticing the things that you are struggling with, because then you are allowing yourself to recognize, validate, and experience that emotion without it having to be shown to you in like cryptic signs and symbols. And obviously, we can't have the time to always be looking at these things. That's not how life goes. We don't always have the time for that. But when we do have the time, and when the occasion presents itself where the dream is significant enough where we're like, all right, that's it, we got to do something about this. I really encourage you to look into, why is this showing up in my dreams? Because you can, you know, be more aware of what you are emitting, the energy that you're emitting. Because as someone who was angry for a long time, still feels anger. We all feel anger. Anger's healthy, anger's natural. But as someone who was constantly kind of harboring this like anger in the background, it kind of presented itself more as like resentment and unhealthy emotions that were not helpful to my everyday life or relationships. So, yeah, that is this video, this subject. I hope that this was helpful, or that you got something out of it. Maybe you realized something about your own dreams and your own, maybe a past dream resurfaced and you realized, oh, that's what that meant. And if not, maybe that will happen in the future now that you know a little bit more about this subject. This is something that I'm very passionate about. So if you have a dream that you want to decode and become more consciously aware of, and that you're comfortable sharing, because do not share anything on the internet that you're not comfortable with. Comment it down below. You don't have to do like all of the details or get really into the nitty gritty if you don't want to, but maybe there's some people in the comment section who are willing to work through the symbolism of that with you, because sometimes when you look up things on the internet, it is just kind of like BS, and there might be a specific person in this comment section who knows what that exactly means, because a lot of times our dreams are oddly specific. So, yeah, if you feel comfortable. If not, just leave a like, thumbs up, subscribe, turn notifications on if you want to be notified the next time I make a video. And yeah, thank you for watching. I appreciate you very much.